Welcome, Reds, to the 100% United pod. I'm your host, TC, and on today's show, we'll be celebrating the extension of Odion Ighalo's loan deal, the potential ins and outs at Old Trafford this year, and finally, it's around a couple of weeks before we see Manchester United again. The Premier League is returning, albeit with a look we've never seen before. First, though, the fairy tale continues. Odion Ighalo has extended his loan until the end of January 2021. The details of the deal look like it's £10.5 million all in, £6.5 million to Shanghai, and the wages that we will pay Odion for the rest of this season and sort of the beginning of next, I guess. We don't know exactly the schedule for next year. It's slated to start again in September, we think, but it's sorted out that spare striker role for these last 9 games of this season, which is absolutely crucial, really, because we were flying before the break. We were flying on all fronts. Look, we were put in a position at the end of last summer where we let people go. Lukaku, Sanchez, we didn't replace them. And we paid the price a little bit, didn't we, with Martial and Rashford picking up injuries as the season went on. Rashford's injury, his back injury, of course, triggered the rush for a new striker at the end of January. We looked around Europe and finally we ended up going to China and getting Ighalo in. He hit the ground running. He has been a revelation at Old Trafford. He is, of course, a Manchester United fan, which it warms our hearts, doesn't it? It gives us, it almost puts us in his position. We all know what it must be like when he's getting, of course, the end of his career. Probably thought the dream would never come alive, but then when it did, it sort of puts a smile on all of our faces. And it's not just that he has performed as well, and he does give us a different option. Look, his hold-up play has been fantastic. He has banged in a few goals. Of course, he's got 4 already. And look, it's great news. We don't know exactly how much this break is going to affect United. Of course, we could have been going better. But now there's pluses and minuses, isn't there? We've got Pogba and Rashford are going to be back and ready to play from the get-go. Of course, we still got Ighalo as well. I'm so glad about this because, look, one injury, and as we know from the Bundesliga, injuries have gone up across that league by a very, very high percentage. And we don't want to be in a position where it's back to square one, if you like. So, yeah, great news. And as I mentioned, we're going to have Rashford and Pogba back, looking sharp in training as well. I've got a feeling that Pogba's going to make the ongoing Pogba situation even more tricky because I think he's going to absolutely smash it when he comes back. He's going to be there alongside Bruno Fernandes. And as I say, we've got that full strike force. The players are looking fresh and in training. And I just got a feeling it's going to be the Pogba show again, which, of course, short-term will be great news. But let's hope we sort it out one way or the other when the transfer window does finally open again. So, yeah, great news. Odion Ighalo continues at Old Trafford. And apparently there's an option to buy him as well. So if he does continue to shine, we've got that option to get him on a full-term deal. Otherwise, he'll go back to China. Apparently, I mean, there's problems with players and people actually even getting into China. So it looks like in the end, this sort of suited everyone. I don't know why it quite came down to the last sort of day, but it did, as is the habit of the modern day United. So we got it over the line. The players are back in training. Rashford looks to have a few new tricks up his sleeve. And as we saw with a couple of pictures, look, we saw McTominay's looking absolutely shredded, in great shape. And then across the road at City, we got Kevin De Bruyne, who looks like he's been wedged himself into a sofa and has been hoovering back the ice cream and pizzas because he looked in an absolute awful shape. So that's good to see. And look, I do have positive vibes and good hopes going into this sort of mini season as it's going to be for United because look, we all look mentally fresh and look mentally ready as well. As I said, the Premier League does look like it's going to have a sort of different feel. There's a few new rules that are going to be voted on by the clubs, I believe, this week. We're going to have football every day. There's going to be football on TV every day. We're even going to have it on terrestrial TV. First time ever the Premier League is going to be on terrestrial TV. And of course, no fans. Now, again, we can only look to the Bundesliga at the moment as a kind of reference. But it has become a leveller. And it's funny, isn't it? It's funny. We always say that football's nothing without fans. And it just goes to show we are a big part of the show. We are big stars of the show as well, because without fans, it's not quite the same, is it? It doesn't grip you in quite the same way. It's not the same theatre, but it is going to be different. We've heard some weird rumours about what might be going on. Apparently, the FIFA 20 crowd sound might be being played, which sounds bonkers to me. But we will see with that. But the new rules that will, of course, affect United if they were put into place. One of which is 5 subs instead of 3. As I mentioned on a previous pod, it would be you'd only be able to stop the game 3 times as a manager to use those 5 subs. So you'd have to do a 2-2 and a 1. But Ollie, one of the big criticisms that Ollie has received since taking over the role is that he doesn't use his subs great. Ironically, as he was the ultimate super sub himself, he seems to wait. He seems to wait to react. Now this is going to change the ball game here. If it's 5 subs, then teams are going to be using that. And personally, I think changing the new rules at this point of the season, I think that just adds to the farce in terms of already there's not a level playing field. Already you're not going to have fans in the stadium. So, that's already the continuity of the season is already out the window. But then if you start bringing in new rules at this stage, it kind of muddies the waters even more, in my view. Look, I understand the 5 subs is because, as I mentioned before, injuries are going to be quite prevalent now, with players having a weird kind of break, but then they've been stuck in their houses. They haven't been fully training. So it's going to be strange. But that's one of the things they're going to vote on. Chelsea have actually asked the Premier League if they can put 9 people on the bench. They want everyone to put 9 people on the bench and be able to use 5 subs. I wouldn't be signing off on this one. I say, look, it's got to stay 3 subs. There's some teams that pride themselves on fitness. There's some teams that pride themselves on, having a real tight-knit squad. Their first 11 and maybe 1 or 2 extra are keys, but they don't delve deep into their subs. And you can't ask teams now at this stage of the season, in inverted commas, the never-ending season, to then change their whole tactics. It's taking us further away from that level playing field that's already been walked away from. Another rule that may come into play is a multi-ball system at the moment. You have to having loads and loads of balls so that... Look, I do understand this one a little bit. What they're saying is that if the ball gets kicked into the crowd, then it gets thrown back and then the game continues. And I understand that. However, now with no fans in the stadium, the ball's going to be kicked into the stand and it's going to get stuck in the seats. And then someone's going to have to go up and get that. Now, of course, you can have more ball boys all dotted around. Ball boys can get up into the stands easier. But that one, I'm not so bothered about, really. I mean, of course, the only problem with that is it like Mourinho's done in the past, you hold the ball, you give the ball quickly to the home team or the away team. But that one, not so bothered about. The other one that's causing a bit of a stink is the possibility to re-register your 25-man squad. So at the end of the transfer window in the autumn, you register your 25-man squad and you do it again at the end of January. Now, everyone's registered their teams and their squads at the end of January. And if you now are saying, look, we can now re-register players. There's certain players who have been injured, have not been popped on that squad list, and now they're going to be available. No United players falls into this particular category. However, there are other teams that do have players, quite key players, that weren't registered because they thought they had major injuries and they wouldn't be back by the summer. Again, I say we shouldn't be writing this off. Look, it's all down to a Premier League vote. 14 out of the 20 teams have to vote positively on these for them to go through. So there'll only ever be sort of 5 teams that are desperately unhappy if it did go through. However, again, we're muddying the waters further. And I think you've got to stick to that 25-man squad that you popped into place. And Karen Brady's been saying that with the testing, if you've got 15 fit players, you're going to be deemed to be able to field a team. So, but she's been trying to get this season written off for a little while because the Hammers are in a little bit of trouble, as we all know. So again, we'll push that one on the back burner, but I wouldn't be writing off these new rules. VAR, of course, could be kiboshed if the Premier League wanted, but I'm led to believe that's not a road they're willing to go down. VAR will stay. And although I am not a fan of VAR, and me and Scott have gone back and forth about it many, many times, if it's here at the start of the season and we've said it's going to be there for the full season, it should be the full season. We should bin it for next season, but it's not going to happen. Look, another issue that's come up now, they've now said that you can play in your home stadiums. No fans, of course, as we know, but you can play in your home grounds, which I think is fantastic. I think it's got to be the case. However, there's a number of matches that have been flagged up as danger matches that could potentially be played in neutral venues. Now, this to me stinks. You can't be having most teams keeping the home advantage, and then suddenly for certain big games you say no, you can't. Now, one of them flagged up. I couldn't believe it when I saw it on the list: Manchester United versus Sheffield United. Now, of course, we're in close proximity in the league table, close proximity in terms of geography as well. But I can't imagine there would be any problem at all. No different problem to any other home United match or any away Sheffield United match. I can't imagine there'll be a whole host of Sheffield United fans, jumping in their cars and getting down to Old Trafford to cause a stink. And I can't imagine United going down to Old Trafford and causing a stink just because it's Sheffield United and just because we're close in the table. To me, that just appeared bonkers to see that on the list. There were a few on the list that obviously stood out. City versus Liverpool is one, Everton versus Liverpool is another, and in inverted commas, because it hasn't happened yet, and let's still hope it doesn't, the game in which Liverpool clinched the title. Now, of course, it makes sense to an extent to have those games on the list, if you have a list at all, that is. I'm saying we shouldn't have a list. But they're saying, look, if Liverpool did win the title and they clinched it at Anfield, then there'd be a whole host of people who would congregate around Anfield. Now, look, when it comes down to it, you've got to put a bit of common sense on this one. If Liverpool won the league and they were playing anywhere and people were intending to go to Anfield, they'd go to Anfield. You congregate around a stadium after the event has happened. So it doesn't really matter where the event took place. If people want to celebrate that, they're going to celebrate it. The one with Goodison Park, I can kind of get that one. That's the only one I really get. Everton, Liverpool, especially if Liverpool are going to win it there. But then what you're going to do, you're going to take it somewhere else in the country. There's hordes of Liverpool fans all over the place, all over the country anyway. As I've said before, I think maybe, those fans are the kind of the fans who are not used to being able to see Liverpool week in, week out. And if they were in a different city, then maybe those fans would say, look, this is my once in a lifetime chance to see, the boys after they won the title, and maybe you'd get people going along then. So I think, to be honest with you, I think what's happened is Merseyside Police have said, look, we can deal with it. We can deal with whatever happens. Although I desperately despise Liverpool, and I really hope they still find a way to mess this up. I'm still holding on some hope. Don't worry about that. I can't write off the idea where you're saying, look, you can't even play in your home stadium. It's just not fair. What if they then lose in the neutral venue, and then the next game has to be in the neutral venue again, and then again and again, and then it really hamstrings them individually as a club. So look, I can't write that off, even though it would be quite amusing anyway. So that's the Premier League and the new era of the Premier League, if you like. I'm sure we've all been watching a little bit of the Bundesliga, and it is weird not having any fans. It's lovely to have the football, but let's hope with a new season we can get fans back in the stadium, because really that's what makes the game great. That's what's made the Premier League such a feast of football. And look, this is going to be a festival of football. It's going to be kind of like a weird World Cup feel. I think the sun's going to be out. Britain's going to be in summer. So the FA Cup is going to continue 27th and 28th of June. We are slated in to play Norwich in the quarterfinals, another competition that we really have a real good chance in. There's some big teams still in there, of course. City still remain as the standout rivals there, but we've been great with them recently. Ollie's been great against Pep, so let's hope that we can advance in that as well. It'd be lovely to get another FA Cup in the bag. We've had so much success over the years, but it's hard to imagine. I think we won a couple since '99, since the treble. Which, just if you told me back then, I mean, we're second in the all-time rankings behind Arsenal, just one behind now, and we did lead them, didn't we? Until they went on that little run with our Alexis Sanchez. It's a shame. It's especially for the slightly older generation. The romance of the FA Cup has always been a massive thing. So it'd be lovely to get one under the belt. Although Wembley behind closed doors would be a bit weird too, I guess. So, but look, European football. The way it's going to work by the sound of things is that the Premier League's going to play out And then after the Premier League's finished, we're going to have another little mini tournament, so sort of double World Cup, if you like, with then Europa League and the Champions League going on. Look, we've got the City Court of Arbitration for Sport case next week now. So even going into the season, we're going to know how the land lies. I believe it's the 8th to the 10th of June. So if that gets upheld, then we can finish 5th, qualify for the Champions League. And we know that. We know that before this 9-game mini-season. However, if it gets overturned, then we'll know we have to shoot for that 4th place. Let's hope City do get the book thrown at them. They already have, and all it needs is the CES to rubber stamp that. I think there's too much smoke without fire. It'd be great to see them knock down a peg, and of course the ramifications and the knock-on effect that will have. Look, we will then complete the Premier League season, and if we do miss out, which I hope we don't, because we've been really flying before the break, and I think it'd be such a shame to ruin all that. But we will get a last chance. We'll have the Europa League. We'll be able to, of course, if we won the Europa League, we would qualify for the Champions League. So let's hope we can, first of all, secure the Premier League spot, even if City don't get banned, and then just win the Europa League anyway, of course. But it's a much bigger carrot to chase if you've got the Champions League place as a necessity, because we all know in terms of getting players in now this summer already, and I'll talk a little bit about transfers at the end, we are already in a position where we are strong. Apparently, we've hit the button. I mentioned that we had 90 million quid in the bank, and then 150 overdraft at the rolling credit, and apparently we've taken 140 million out of that. So people are suggesting that might be for the acquisition of new players. So here's hoping. We've got Jadon Sancho hit a hat-trick in the Bundesliga. Now we've snagged Ighalo on a short-term loan. Again, you'd think we might put a full weight of resources into getting him. Wes Brown recently compared him to Ronaldo. He looked great, of course, in his first start back when he bagged that hat-trick, his first hat-trick of his career as well. And you just think that, look, we got Ighalo sorted. We can now focus on that right wing position and any other positions Ollie deems that we need to strengthen. It'd be nice to have another strong centre-back, maybe, if we're going to shed a few. There's been rumours around Smalling going to Rome on a permanent. Phil Jones, Rojo, Estudiantes have said he will come back, but we don't know what will happen with that one. It just gives us that chance to strengthen the rest of the team, have a look how the land lies, and hopefully get Jadon Sancho in to form that formidable front line me and Scott talked about before. Another winger who actually has come onto the radar, apparently, look, we take this with a pinch of salt, of course, is with City having this case next week. If they got banned from Europe for 2 years, as it would be, you expect some players to leave. Raheem Sterling is one that's being put and linked to Manchester United now. Look, as I say, let's take this with a pinch of salt, because we'd have to persuade City to sell him to us. We'd have to throw a hell of a lot of cash their way. He was a United fan as a kid, but yeah, as I say, I can't see it happening, but it's a bit fun anyway. It's a bit fun to see City squirming ahead of that case, and they deserve to as well with the sort of tomfoolery that's gone on around it. A few other names. Look, it's mainly Bundesliga names that are popping up on the charts at the moment, and French League, Camavinga has popped up. Of course, the French League has been finalised, and the German League goes on. So you've got your Timo Werner's been linked. Now we've got Ighalo on a full-time deal. Now we've got Ighalo on that deal until January. You think that Timo Werner would not be such a necessary purchase. He does have that release clause. It does run out in the next couple of weeks. He can play across the front three, but it wouldn't be a priority. And look, if we're getting Sancho in, I'd say it would be it would certainly not happen. The only other one that's popped up from the Bundesliga is Kai Havertz. Has kept up his form from before the break, and he's a player who he kind of plays in the same role as Bruno Fernandes. He can play right wing. He has played up front as well. He's a flexible player. He's a great player as well. Fluid, creative, gets his goals as well. That's one on the individual Ollie. It's just whether Ollie loves him as a player. And look, I will never say, let's not have more squad strength. I love when we have a deep squad and players play their way in or out of the club. I think there's been too many times in recent years when we've had players who kind of know that they can drop their level of performance a little bit and pick it up a little bit and know they're not going to be on the breadline. However, when you get that standard of squad member up across the board, then people start having to pull their fingers out, because if you don't, then you know your career at United is over, and it very rarely goes uphill after leaving United. So they'll be well placed to heed those warnings. And we'll see. Look, seems like we'll have the cash. I hope we take advantage of this situation this summer and really push forward, close that gap and get some really quality players in, get rid of a few players who haven't been performing. Of course, push on towards next season. Apparently, we might only have a couple of weeks rest. If we got to the Europa League final, it would be around 2 weeks we would have as an off-season. Of course, we've had all this time off now, but it would, again, require squad numbers. So I think we should be going down that road. We'll, of course, be wearing our new kits next season. The new kit has been leaked now, the home kit. I did say on our Instagram at United 100 podcast, that leak a few weeks ago was a fake. People online, they didn't believe me, and they were saying, look, no, this has been leaked for months and rah, getting their abuse out. The truth is, stick with us for all the latest kit leaks, because we know what we're doing. But the new one doesn't look as bad. I don't know if it's a case of lowering our standard to then give us something that is slightly better, and then we go, oh, that's gorgeous, or whether it is gorgeous. I love the emblem going back to the traditional United colours. It always should be on the home kit as far as I'm concerned. And on most away kits too, it should be, not always monochrome, but it does look better. It's got that traditional look of a United shirt, and when viewed from far, it looks classic. So that's nice for me. Apparently we're going to have white socks at home, which is traditionally, of course, a European thing for United. Started, the players sort of superstitiously started in 99. We had them, the white socks, didn't we, when we won the treble. Apparently it's going to be our default home socks. So I don't know if that will be the case, but I hope not. It should be black socks at home and then white socks for Europe and when we clash. But good news with that. And as I say, stick with us for all the latest leaks on Instagram. One last thing to touch on. We've had a few old flames voicing their opinions. Chicharito had a chat to Rio Ferdinand the other day. It was nice to see Chicha chatting about his time at United so fondly. He was a cult hero at United for those years. He came in, of course, from Mexico. He talked a little bit about the story of how he couldn't believe it, how it was just out of the blue meeting Fergie and his relationship with Fergie. It was fantastic to see him chatting so positively. But he did say, he should have been here for longer. And I agree. I think a goal getter like that, he just fitted United so perfectly. And people might say he didn't tear it up when he went elsewhere. But at the same time, his as I say, it very rarely goes uphill after United. But he did have some words to say about David Moyes. He didn't go in too hard on him, but it was nice to hear from the horse's mouth a little bit of what we all felt at the time. I know Fergie's advice to Moyes was, keep your backroom staff around you. These are good men. They'll help you through this period. Cheetah he mirrored those views, didn't he? And he said Moyes was so stubborn. He couldn't believe that he didn't keep some, even half of what Fergie was already doing, because Fergie's the greatest manager that's ever been. So why would you tear up the copybook in such swift and emphatic way as Moyes did? And Chicharito, he said that, it's a mistake that we're still paying for today. At the time, we discussed all kinds of different managers, didn't we? We discussed who would be coming in, who would fit. I always said at the time, and I know it's a different story from when he did come in, I always said, let's get Mourinho in and get a trophy and lift that monkey off our back. We will never know, but I think it might have been a different marriage than it was when Mourinho did come in, because obviously it went pretty sour pretty quickly. But that monkey off our back quickly, but it was nice anyway. Seeing Chicharito chat so positively, we'll always remember those good days, won't we? All those goals against Chelsea, away at the Bridge, mayhem in the away end there. And of course, when he sort of fired us to European Cup final as well. Really great years, those with Chicharito there. Just finally, another Louis van Gaal has been saying a few things as well, throwing a few barbs the board's way. and saying that he was left to his sort of eighth choice signings when he was at United. Look, with Louis, it's a tricky one, isn't it? It's a tricky one. He did so many good things, but he did so many things that looked like they were bad as well. And although he says he wasn't getting the players in he wanted, he also released quite a few players who I think we could have kept and we could have used. And so when you look at it like that, you kind of think, well, if your decisions with the outgoing players weren't on the ball, then how can I trust your decisions on the incoming players were on the ball as well? Look, we spent a hell of a lot of money with Louis. We got a lot of players who should have shone, who were shining elsewhere and didn't at Old Trafford. So it's such a tricky one with Van Gaal. I know, just looking back at the time, I remember when we won the FA Cup, I was absolutely over the moon. But then when we announced later in the day that Mourinho was going to come in instead, it was a relief in hindsight. It was, because Van Gaal's football had seemed stagnant, but then there were other things, other aspects. And when you hear, your Roonies say that he learnt the most off Van Gaal, and you just wonder with one more year how it would have gone. But as I say, at the time, I have to say it felt like the right view. Look, he even let Van Persie go, didn't he? He was his special boy for Holland in the World Cup, and then just a year later, he was chucking him out of Old Trafford. Another player you put on top of sort of your Chicharitos, even your Raphaels, who you think, and Nani as well, could have given us something, even in sort of on a squad level. Instead of tearing it apart. But those years we still pay for now. But hopefully we're on our way out of it. Hopefully we are going back to the top. As I say, the new season kicks off in a couple of weeks, and we're going to have a full squad to choose from. We're going to see Pogba and Bruno, Rashford all together again. So let's hope we can kick on and really finish this season strongly. Thanks for joining us again, everyone. Jump onto our Instagram at United100 Podcast for all the latest from the 100% United team. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And remember, we're on Spotify if that's easy for you too. We'll be back later in the week, and I should have Scott alongside me too, which will be great. Until then, take care. Cheerio, Reds.